Hi, everybody. I'm Shannon Borg, and this is Where Do You Get Your Ideas? One simple practice to keep creativity flowing. This webinar focuses on the ripple meditation practice that I've been doing for the past few months. I'm going to start out with a definition and walk you through a demo, and then we'll try it ourselves. Okay, so first, a little bit about me. I'm Shannon Borg. I'm the artist business coach. I'm a painter. I live on San Juan Island in Washington State, and I paint the beaches, and I'm working towards more abstract art. I want to create more freely, and I also have worked with my clients to really try to create more freely and create businesses we love. So sometimes we struggle against these things. And as I've become an artist later in life, I went back to art school at age 50. I really have been trying to develop ways for this to happen for myself and for my clients. I help people build websites, and I also help them talk about and work past creative blocks and all of the things that kind of hold us back in our creative process and in our businesses. So today I'm going to share one process with you, the ripple meditation, that I hope will help you. This is for artists, writers, makers, thinkers, entrepreneurs of all kinds, and humans. First, a little bit about the creative process itself. What is it? I've really tried to understand that. And although this webinar is not really about the creative process as a definition, I want to give you a quick definition of it. And it basically, the definition talks about the ability to transcend traditional ideas, rules, and patterns. And so artists always are doing original things and new things. We're innovating and we're coming up with new imaginative ideas. But sometimes the creative process doesn't feel easy. In the 1920s, a graphic designer named Graham Wallace came up with this quote unquote creative process, which had 5 stages. He was a graphic designer and he worked with businesses. And so this to me seems really corporate and linear, but it does have some interesting points. So he suggested, that we go through this process of preparation, we let ideas incubate, and then we have those moments of illumination, often when we're in the shower or doing something else. And then we kind of look at those ideas, they come to us, we evaluate them, and then we implement them and verify them. But often this process is not linear. It feels different than this to me. I found this on the internet and I thought it was great. Work starts. We have a long process of just doing nothing, panicking, and then we do everything at the last minute. And often I would go beyond my deadlines if I had one. And then if I don't have a deadline for myself, it's really difficult to sometimes actually do work just when I'm on my own deadline. So it looks a little bit more like this. And I'm sure you can understand, I'm sure you can commiserate with this feeling. So creativity in the creative process is about solving problems through innovation. And sometimes that does not work on that linear timeline. It happens all over the place. But we can incorporate tools and routines that can kind of help us move through this process more easily. One of those tools came out of one of my mentor's ideas called the Idea Baby. What she says is that, and this is Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School, she says that we take our mentor's wisdom and our own ideas, and of course, we all know what a Venn diagram looks like, but she calls it the Idea Baby. I love this. So Star Wars is kind of an idea baby between the hero's journey and sci-fi. I even found this picture of the stormtroopers with an actual idea baby, an egg. The spork is an idea baby between a spoon and a fork. And I will offer that all of art is a process of creating these idea babies. Frida Kahlo has this painting, The Wounded Deer, where she puts her actual face on it. And it is just so emotionally impactful, I think. We do this a lot. We combine things and juxtapose things that become something new. The I Ching is an idea baby between the concept of the yin and the yang. And I was doing this process of creative meditation that I called it. It came out of my meditation process with wanting to be more creative. I would meditate in the morning, and then I found myself bringing out my journal and kind of jotting down those ideas that came to me in meditation, because I found all of these thoughts were rising just at the moment when I was trying to calm everything down. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to just jot these down. Well, of course, that's not regular meditation. It became more of a creative meditation. So I started doing it intentionally in a quiet space with music or silence. I got my journal out, and then I just kind of dropped a pebble, a thought pebble, an idea into the pond of my mind, and I just watched what happened. Well, with this concept of the idea baby, what happens when you take two ideas, right? Like my mentor suggests, mentor's ideas and our ideas, and we put them together. In this case, what happens if I take two ideas, drop them in the pond, and see where the ripples overlap? So this is the ripple meditation. It's same as any creative meditation, but instead of one idea, we have two. So I'm going to walk you through that and give you an example of my own ripple meditation and where it's taken me. And then we will do this practice together. Okay, so follow me down my rabbit hole. I love Alice in Wonderland. This is Kristen Williams' painting, Down the Rabbit Hole. And I just love anything Alice, because it just really encapsulates the creative process so well. Okay, so my morning practice of creative meditation and journaling. And what happens if I take two pebbles? So when I was meditating, I thought, okay, in my meditation, here's an idea, here's another idea. What happens when they come together? And what I realized that came up out of this meditation is that when the ripples or the waves touch, they create interference. And that word interference is really an obstacle, right? They're bumping into each other. And out of this meditation came the thought that the color wheel itself is an idea baby between light waves and the surface or atmospheric particles. Out of that rises color. So here's one of my ripple meditations. I had basically worked with the concept of light and the concept of painting, and I was using this rolled paper idea. So I put these rolled paper into a window, and I didn't realize that there was a light above the window. So it was an accident, but it was illuminated. And so out of that and out of meditating about it, I came up with this idea of the lunaria. So I started creating these rolled paper paintings lit from below and they would bring this moon figure onto the ceiling. So I thought that was really a kind of a fun outcome of this ripple meditation. My mentor's way of defining this process of thinking, she calls it super thinking. So whatever you want to call it, there's a really interesting process that goes into our minds when we slow down and when we bring different ideas together. Okay, so one of my goals is to really work with nature and work like nature. And so I take this idea of the studio, the self, and the business, and I want to see where they overlap. In myself, as I'm going down this rabbit hole with you again, as you see, the self part is me working in my own meditation to create a sense of security in my own ideas and to create an atmosphere in my mind where I can have creativity flowing. So I take that atmosphere, I move it into the studio, I take pictures, I use tarot cards, and see what comes out of the studio and the self meditation, the Ripple meditation process. Then I take that into my business. So for instance, I will meditate on an idea that brings up an idea baby, and then I will move that into my studio and into my business. For instance, taking the colors from a painting and moving those colors onto my website, or creating a teaching or a training out of some of these ideas that then I can help my clients with. Okay, so now let's move on a little bit. Part of the reasons that I do the Ripple meditation are to follow the trail of my own thinking, really to really understand how I'm going down this road to enrich my thinking. And often I will look up words in my etymology dictionary online or look up a Wikipedia. And that's okay, right? That's part of the rabbit holes that I'm going down. And then I create this atmosphere in my mind where I am filling the well. All right, so one part of this was when I went and looked up the word interference. It's Latin and it means between or fighting, striking between. Okay, so in the 18th century, before the word interference was common, there was a word intermeddling. And I thought that was a really interesting word because when we think of the word meddling, we think of someone who's gossiping or poking their nose into somebody else's business. And it's usually associated with women. So it's like not a good word, right? So that was kind of interesting. And meddling has the old French meaning of mixing or blending. It also means sexual intercourse, or it was like a slang for that. So I thought that was interesting. Meddlesome was applied to women. And in fact, in the 18th century, I'm still down my rabbit hole, mind you, right? And just stay with me that I'm looking up in this meditation of thinking about interference. I'm looking up meddlesome. I'm looking up interference. And I found something really interesting. There was a very popular poem in the 18th century called Meddlesome Maddie. And Maddie went into her grandmother's room and she was interested in her glasses and looking at her glasses. And when out of her curiosity, she dropped her grandmother's glasses and she broke them. So this is a warning for young girls, especially when she was showing curiosity and interest and drive, and she was thinking for herself. This poem was a warning against that. So I want to let you know that this idea of meddling, of don't be curious because it'll get you into trouble, that's not just society, although it's a huge part of it, especially for women, but it's also our brains. So out of our brains, our society has created this idea that, we should stay quiet, stay small, not try new things because of safety, right? Our brains want us to seek pleasure, avoid pain, conserve energy, and keep ourselves safe. So our brains offer these thoughts to us all the time. I'm bad at business. I'm bad at art. Technology is hard. This is a waste of time. Life is, this is expensive of me trying to do all these art projects. So I just want to offer that this is what you call, and one of my coaches, Stacey Bayman, calls a low value cycle. Our brains get in this low value cycle. And out of this low value cycle, what happens? Our productive actions don't grow out of this. So I want to offer that when we are choosing thoughts that feel good in that energy of creativity, and we don't let those warnings drive our actions and that fear, we're in a higher value cycle. If we choose the thoughts, ideas are abundant, my work is important, I can do this, I'm open to taking action towards my dreams, then we're going to come forward with actions that are more productive for us as artists. So why is this work so important? Well, of course, women have always been struggling with this, and we've been in society held back from this. And here's a beautiful idea, baby. The Guerrilla Girls put together the idea of the guerrilla, fighters and an actual gorilla with a nude from a Renaissance painting. And they had this campaign about women in the Metropolitan Museum. Do women have to be naked to get into the Met Museum? Less than 5% of the artists in the modern art section are women, but 85% of the nudes are female. And this brought about a whole conversation in the art world about women in art, women artists. I really encourage you to go see this video called One Is Not Enough about the Van Gogh exhibit in Amsterdam several years ago. So good. So let's get meddlesome. Let's get over these feelings of, fear, of being curious, of being innovative, of breaking things, right? That's not helpful. So I hope that we can all start making idea babies to change our own lives, our communities, and our planet. I just want to reiterate, these things are not a waste of time. Curiosity, interest, thinking, your own ideas, your own feelings of drive, motivation, and quest for meaning. So, like working with nature and working like nature with myself, my studio, and my business, out of that process came this, I was looking to find kind of a simple 3-step process for my art and my business. And so far I have create an atmosphere. That was kind of like my first step. So as I'm still in these process of ripple meditations and coming up with ideas, I'm thinking about the concept of inside and outside. So inside us is the DNA, the cells, the information. Outside, that ripple, it hits obstacles to grow. And like with shells or any form, we must find ways to grow past those edges. And constraint creates form. So here's a yin-yang symbol. Within the yang, there is the yin, and within the yin, there is yang. And as artists, we need constraint, right? We create this atmosphere of all these ideas and abundance, but we need constraint in our world in order to take those ideas and move them forward. So one idea that came out of my teaching is drawing your future self. And this is an example of one of the self-coaching model, which I teach in my practice. I'm not going to go into this, but if you work with me, you will come to understand this tool as well. Also, in your studio is an extension of your brain. So our studios and our businesses are very important to keep this process moving. This concept of the empire mindset is another one that I teach that came out of coaching that I had received, and then also moving into my own ideas with the tarot and the abundant nature of creative production. Okay, so here's a little oyster that I drew with crayons, and I thought it was a good example of this idea of nature growing outward. So when we think in terms of curiosity, interest, and we have this feeling of drive and meaning and motivation and love, we move into actions that drive us forward and help us evolve and expand. So my first step that came out of this ripple meditation is create an atmosphere. The next step is make decisions. So I decided to create some teachings out of what I was learning from these meditations. I created a freebie, a value video, and this webinar came out of it, a module in my coaching program. So far, my idea, babies, is this motley family, like the Addams family, but I love it. It is really important because it feels like me. In my art, I've created a Dream Lodge series of paintings, the Lunaria. I created an installation, and then also this concept of the struggle button, which I'm going to bring up in a minute. In my coaching business, I've moved these ideas into different teachings. Okay, and then I'm starting a podcast in January. So I just want to show you how this simple concept of a meditation can help you move forward. All right, the ripple meditation. What I'm going to do is give you 4 minutes to meditate on your thought pebbles. All right, so you can stop this video, pause it, and take a few minutes. Write down one thought on the left-hand side, one on the right-hand side, and then just quietly sit with those thoughts and see how they overlap, see how they interfere. I'll see you in a minute. Okay. I wanted to explain this idea of the struggle button before we move on. So the struggle button came out of a meditation. And so I was thinking about how artists struggle and how this idea must have, some scientific research behind it. And I came up with a concept of basically thinking about the artist's struggle and how we love to kind of go back to the struggle. So I was looking up this a concept that I came across called contra freeloading. I have a blog post about this, so you might go to my blog and read more about it. But basically what it comes down to is in cages, they would, teach these rats or animals to hit the button and get a kibble. When they learned how to do that, then they would put a bowl of free food in the cage. And for a while, the animal, the rat, would go and eat out of the bowl. But almost every animal except the cat would actually go back to the button. And I realized that what happens is when we hit that button, it gives us a benefit. It gives us the benefit of knowing certainty that we're going to get the kibble. It also gives us the benefit of agency, of feeling like we worked for it. So that's why we struggle, right? We love this feeling of working for what we get, even though there's abundance right next to us. And also it gives us the feeling of stimulation. So the struggle button is what we do when we feel like we need to get that certainty, agency, and stimulation. So as you move into your creative practice, I hope that you can remember that it's okay to want to work hard and want to make choices. And sometimes we have that feeling of struggle. But the more we can realize that it's just this thought process in our mind, that we can go to that abundant bowl of ideas anytime we want, that is really freeing. And I encourage you to read a little bit more about that on my blog. Okay, so I would love to hear some of your ideas that came up during your Ripple meditation. And on this webinar, I'm going to repeat some of them that came up as people were meditating. Okay, so Patty says that she was meditating around fabric and stained glass. Okay, and her art fiber art came out of this idea of juxtaposing stained glass which is cold and hard, with wearable fiber art, which is soft and warm. And she's, in the past, she's created these beautiful coats and shawls and scarves that have this stained glass pattern. So in this current meditation, she was thinking about kinetic art or kinetic movement and fabric or clothing. So out of this meditation came some ideas around making her clothing move in different ways. And it was so fascinating to hear Patty talk about that. Another idea came out of this idea. Someone mentioned vibration and color and sound, and how they were trying to incorporate those two ideas together. And Pam mentioned she wanted to incorporate the growth of nature with flowers, and how she's painting flowers now, and she wants to show how they grow and how the color vibrates on the canvas. So I just want you to know that these ideas can go anywhere. And I just encourage you to try this concept a few times and see if it helps you create something new. And I want you to feel free to rock that rabbit hole. Okay, so thank you so much for being on the webinar with me today. I want to just reiterate to you that this process of working with yourself, then moving yourself into your studio and creating that atmosphere in your self studio and your business that you can grow and continually improve is really important. I coach artists, and I really believe that coaching works for artists. I can help you with this process if you'd like to go deeper. You're not broken, you're an artist. And I want you right now, before we leave, to think about that one thought that is holding you back. And try that in your next Ripple meditation, to drop that thought into a pond and then drop another one that is contrary to that, and see where they bump up and interfere with each other, and if that can help you. My program is called the Metaphor Mindset Studio. I hope that you will explore it a little more on my website, shannonborg.com. And when you join me for Metaphor Mindset Studio, you receive 6 one-on-one coaching sessions and access to all my teachings on the Metaphor Mindset Studio Vault, as well as a weekly thought salon group going forward, where we bring our thoughts that are holding us back, or our inspirational thoughts, just like we would at an art salon. You can also think of it as a hair salon, where we'll trim those thoughts for you. And we work together to help us get past thoughts that are holding us back, but also just to think of new ideas, to share ideas with the group, to work through whatever you are thinking about and working on in your creativity and in your business right now. So thank you so much for being here with me today, and I hope to talk to you in the future.